Where, oh, where is former President Barack Obama on the issue of reparations? Obama recently gave a speech in which he attacked what he called the critics of identity politics.
Now, I want to be clear. I have little sympathy for reactionaries who cynically condemn identity politics or cancel culture, when really all they're doing is trying to preserve existing privilege or excuse entrenched injustice or bigotry. I mean, the original identity politics is racism and sexism and homophobia. That's nothing if not identity politics, and it's done a lot more harm than some tweet from an aggrieved liberal.
And I have little sympathy for people who remain silent when a divisive issue like reparations is boiling up. Reactionaries? This would be the same Obama who burst on the national scene by giving a speech at the Boston 2004 DNC where he denounced the very identity politics he's now defending. And I don't recall him saying one word about reparations.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
So if he does not want us divided, where does he stand on the growing reparations movement? Now, days before he announced his race to become a Democratic nominee for president back in 2008, Obama gave his first 60 Minutes interview.
How important is race in defining yourself?
I am rooted in the African American community, but I'm not defined by it. I am comfortable in my racial identity, but that's not all I am.
You think the country's ready for a black president?
Yes.
At a 2007 speech at Brown Chapel AME Church, presidential candidate Obama talked about the black struggle, about how much had been achieved, and that which remained. And once again, if he said anything about reparations, I didn't hear it, let alone $5 million for every black descendant of slaves in the city of San Francisco.
The Moses generation pointed the way. They took us 90% of the way there, but we still got that 10% in order to cross over to the other side.
We got 90% of the way there. We still have that 10%. So if it's 10%, why do we need reparations? We've discussed this before. A January 2009 ABC poll found that 58% thought race relations would improve under a President Obama. But by October 2016, 1 month before the presidential election, a CNN poll found 54% thought race relations worsened under Obama, including 40% of blacks and 57% of whites. Now, Obama could close the divide right now, or at least some of it, if he came out strongly against reparations. After all, one poll found 80% of blacks support them, while only 20% of whites do. Talk about a racial divide. So say something, Mr. Obama. Obama, as president, peddled with little evidence an ever-growing list of racial grievances. The list included: the Cambridge police acted stupidly. Racism is still part of our DNA that's passed on. And if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
He held up Ferguson as a microcosm of racial strife here in America.
I know the world also took notice of the small American city of Ferguson, Missouri, where a young man was killed and a community was divided. So yes, we have our own racial and ethnic tensions. And like every country, we continually wrestle with how to reconcile the vast changes wrought by globalization and greater diversity with the traditions that we hold dear.
Ferguson was a lie. Michael Brown did not say, don't shoot, his hands were not up, his DNA was found on the officer's gun. And yes, we have our own problems. Ferguson? Obama invited race-hustling incendiary, the Reverend Al Sharpton, to the White House over 70 times.
George Floyd's story has been the story of black folks. Because ever since 401 years ago, the reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed to be in is you kept your knee on our neck.
You kept your knee on our neck? The problem, Reverend, is the breakdown of the family. And around 1900, there's evidence that a black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into the world with a father in the home married to the mother. That changed because of government policy, not systemic racism. Larry Elder here. Buy gold and get a free safe to store it in. That's right. On qualifying purchases from Birch Gold Group now through March 31st, they will ship a free safe directly to your door. All you have to do is visit LarryForGold.com to get your free info kit on gold and to claim eligibility for your free safe. Here's the deal. The Fed keeps raising rates because, frankly, it's the only tool they have to keep inflation under control. And it's not working. You cannot spend your way out of inflation. You've seen the impact on the stock market. You've seen the impact on your savings. Hedge inflation by owning gold, whether physical gold and silver in your safe or through an IRA in precious metals, where you can hold real gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied customers. Visit LarryForGold.com for your free info kit on gold and to claim your eligibility for your free home safe by March 31st on qualifying purchases. Again, visit LarryForGold.com. That's LarryForGold.com. Economist Thomas Sowell has written, and I'm quoting him, most black children were raised in two-parent families prior to the 1960s. But today, the great majority of black children are raised in one-parent families. Such trends, he said, are not unique to blacks, nor even unique to the United States. The welfare state has led to a remarkably similar trend among white underclass in England over the same period, end of quote. And get this, a black teen was more likely than a white teen or a black or white adult to have a job. Until, that is, the minimum wage changed everything. The late economist Walter Williams wrote, and I'm quoting, how do you think the Reverends Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton would explain the unemployment difference between black and white teens? You can bet the rent money they would say it's racial discrimination. But let's investigate. Was racial discrimination in 1948 greater or less than racial discrimination today? In 1948, the unemployment rate for white 16 to 17-year-olds was 10.2%, while that for blacks was 9.4%. Among white 18 and 19-year-olds, unemployment was 9.4%, and for blacks, it was 10.5%. During that period, not only were the unemployment rates similar, writes Williams, black teenagers were equally as active as whites in the labor force, or more so. In fact, as early as 1900, blacks as a group were more active in the labor market, a statistic known in economics as the labor force participation rate, than whites. This was true up until the late 1950s. Now, anyone with a brain, writes Williams, would reject the argument that less racial discrimination accounts for the lower black teen unemployment rate back then and the greater labor force participation rate. So what might help to explain? The major villain? The minimum wage law. With each increase in the minimum wage, black teen unemployment rose relative to whites, and the teen unemployment rose relative to adults. So, if the breakdown of the family had nothing to do with systemic racism, and if high black teen unemployment has nothing to do with systemic racism, then how do you justify reparations? Would Obama care to make a comment? And speaking of bad advice and bad policy, listen to Barack Obama's Attorney General Loretta Lynch when asked about then AG William Barr's opposition to the coronavirus lockdowns. Her reaction has not worn well given what we now learn about the coronavirus, the vaccine and mask mandates, and how many businesses were destroyed, how many people went into depression, and the huge learning loss from virtual versus in-school learning, something that the already behind Black children could ill afford. Watch this.
This is about what Attorney General Barr has said. Comparing COVID lockdowns to slavery, let me just read this. Putting a national lockdown, stay-at-home orders, is like house arrest. Other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history. So I want to know what your response is. Obviously, there wasn't a national lockdown in the United States, but your response to those words and how it, deals with the idea of the greater good versus individual freedoms.
Again, just a tremendous missed opportunity by the Attorney General, and just if you want to talk about the greatest intrusions on civil liberties, I think it's unfortunate that he places health restrictions designed to save lives and keep us safe above, for example, the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the atrocious treatment of Native Americans throughout generations in this country. I think that those would stand far and above health restrictions designed to save our lives. And in fact, we have a way to, in fact, ensure our freedoms. Wear a mask, follow the CDC guidance, and we will all be able to engage in the freedoms that we so cherish in terms of our mobility around this country. So I frankly put no stock in that comment, to be quite honest with you.
Talk about missed opportunities. The lockdown disproportionately hurt small businesses, many of them owned by the very people of color that people like Loretta Lynch claim they care about. They disproportionately hurt Blacks and Hispanics who rank near the bottom in reading and math and now have suffered learning loss that will translate into less money over the course of their lifetime, all because of virtual versus in-school learning due to COVID policies. Obama once opposed reparations, said they would be too divisive. But again, he has not said a single word about the growing reparations movement. Does he still oppose them? If so, he runs the risk of being marginalized, if not canceled, by the majority of Blacks and many on the left, especially young Blacks, who support reparations. Does he support them? If so, he needs to explain why he's done a 180. His silence is deafening. We're waiting. And that's the elder statement. Now, I know you love this show, so please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then scroll down and get on our mailing list. Why? Well, because from time to time, YouTube has an issue with our videos. To make sure you do not miss a video, you got to get on our mailing list. Also, you see that nice little round donate button, hit that, throw a little something in the tip jar. That way, we can make sure that you continue to get hard-hitting, candid, honest, brutally honest programming. Remember, Larry with Epoch, E-P-O-C-H, LarryWithEpoch.com. I'm Larry Elder. This has been the Larry Elder Show for Epoch Times. I'll see you next time. Remember, we've got a country to save.